Welcome to the Middle School Cafe podcast, where we're serving up fresh strategies and solutions for ELA teachers just like you. Join us as we explore proven methods to bridge the achievement gap and help every student reach their full potential. Whether you're a veteran teacher or just starting out, grab a cup of coffee and a notepad and let's get started. Here's your host, Carolyn Wall.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. Let me ask you, how are you holding up? For many of you, state testing is either happening right now or just around the corner. Schedules are shifting, routines are getting interrupted, and there's just a different kind of energy in the building. There's a lot of pressure. You're trying to keep things moving forward, keep students focused, keep your classroom running the way you want it to, all while navigating those interruptions and, honestly, just the mental fatigue that comes with this point in the year. And I'm sure your students are feeling it too. Some of them are tired, some of them are a little checked out, some of them are doing their best, but you can tell their focus just isn't quite where it was earlier in the year. So if things feel a little off right now, you're not imagining it. That's just the reality of this time of year. But even with all of that, there is still so much meaningful learning that can happen. Instead of trying to do something completely different, this is a really good time to just focus on the small things that can make a big impact, the things that help students stay focused, stay engaged, and most importantly, stay thinking. And that's really what we're going to talk about today. Today, we're going to focus on questioning, not just asking questions, but really thinking about the types of questions we're asking students and what those questions are actually asking students to do. Because questioning is one of the simplest ways to shift the level of thinking your students are required to do. Most of our students can answer basic comprehension questions. They can find information, they can tell you what happened, they can identify details. But that's not the same as understanding, really comprehending the text. Students are doing the work, but they're not always doing the thinking that leads to real comprehension. Instead of asking, are my students answering the questions? A better question might be, what kind of thinking do my questions require? Because that's really what drives everything else. Yes, I want my students to read and comprehend, but more importantly, I want my students to be thinkers. If a student can answer a question by pointing to one sentence, copying it down, and moving on, then the thinking stays at that level. It's a surface level response. But if a student has to pause, go back into the text, connect ideas, and explain their reasoning, now we're asking them to do something very different. We are asking them to think critically about what they've just read. Let me walk you through what this looks like. Let's say you're reading a novel and you ask, what happened in this chapter? A student might say, the character left the house. That's correct. It answers the question. It's quick and it's done. That took very little thinking to answer. But if you shift that question to, why does it matter that the character left the house? Now the student has to stop and think. They can't just pull a sentence. They have to consider what led up to that moment and what it means moving forward. At first, you might still get a short answer. Something like, because they had to. But instead of just moving on, say, tell me more about that. Now the student might add, because they were scared before and now they're not. You can still take it one step further and ask, how do you know what happened earlier that shows they were scared? Now they're going back into the text. Now they're connecting moments. Now they're building an answer instead of finding one. And what you end up with sounds more like, earlier they didn't want to leave because they were afraid of what might happen outside. And you can see that when they hesitate and keep making excuses to stay. But now they decide to go anyway, so it shows they're starting to change and push past that fear. That's deeper thinking, and it didn't come from changing the lesson. It came from changing the question and how we followed up. Here are some other ways you can adjust your questions. Instead of asking, what problem is the character facing? You could ask, why is this problem difficult for this character? Or instead of asking, what is the conflict? You could ask, how is this conflict affecting the character's choices? It's the same content, but requires a very different level of thinking. And what's interesting is you'll probably get different responses from students. Someone might say, I think it matters because now something is about to happen, and this is the moment where things start to change in the story. Now you've got two different ways of thinking about the same moment, and that gives you another opportunity as the teacher. You can ask, which one makes more sense based on the text? Or, do we see evidence for both of these ideas? Now, students aren't just answering the question, they're evaluating and comparing ideas. And that's another layer of thinking that comes directly from how we structure the conversation. Let's look at how this might play out across an entire lesson, because this is where questioning becomes really powerful. Before students even start reading, we can set the purpose with a question. Instead of saying, read and find out what happens to the main character, we might say, as you read, think about why the character makes the decisions they do. Now students are reading with a focus. They're not just moving through the text, they're paying attention to looking for something specific. They are thinking and evaluating as they read. During reading, we can pause and ask, what is the character doing right now? But then follow up with, why do you think they're doing that? That second question is what keeps the thinking going. And after reading, instead of asking, what was the main event? We ask, which moment mattered the most and why? Now students have to make a decision, support it, and explain it. We're pushing them to think simply by the way we're asking our questions. And this works with all students, regardless of ability level. Every student can respond to a why question. They can share an idea, form an opinion, and begin explaining their thinking, and that's what we want to build on. What you start to see is that students aren't just reading once and moving on. They're going back. They're reconsidering. They're thinking about what matters. And even when they turn to a partner for help, the level of their conversation starts to shift. They're not just asking, what did you get? They're asking, why did you say that? Or, where did you see that? This same approach works just as well with nonfiction texts. When students are reading an article or a textbook, it's really easy for them to stay at the surface level. If we ask, what is this section about? They'll tell us. They'll say, it's about pollution, or it's about the problem. And again, that's not wrong, but it doesn't require much thinking. So the shift is in how we frame the question. Instead, we might ask, how does this section help the reader understand the author's point? Or why does the author include this information? Those kinds of questions push students to think about purpose and structure, not just content. You'll start to hear the difference in their answers. Instead of naming the topic, students begin explaining how the information fits together. They'll say things like, this part gives examples so you understand why it's a problem, or this explains what caused it so you can see how it started. They're not just reading for information, they're reading to make sense of the larger issue. Let's pause for a moment and talk about what happens when students don't respond the way we want them to, because that will happen. It would be great if students always responded exactly the way we hoped they would, but we know that's not how it works. You'll ask a stronger question, and instead of getting that deeper response right away, you might get silence. You might get, I don't know, or you might get a very short answer that doesn't go much beyond the surface. And that can feel frustrating, especially when you're trying to keep the lesson moving and you're watching the time. But that moment, that's actually where the work begins. One thing I see happen a lot, and I've done it myself, is we ask a strong question. And when students struggle, we get nervous and immediately simplify to keep things moving or relieve the tension. We change the question to something easier, something they can answer quickly. But when we do that, we're actually lowering the level of thinking we're asking students to do. The goal isn't to make the question easier. The goal is to support students so they dig deeper and do more thinking. This is where our response to student answers really matters, especially when those answers don't go much beyond the surface. Because in those moments, we have a choice. Do we pause and support student thinking, or do we move on because the class period is almost over? Realistically, we've all been in that moment where moving on feels like the easier option. But if we want students to do deeper thinking, this is where we have to stay with it just a little longer. One of the first things we can do is simply give students time, and I mean real time, not just a quick pause before we jump in to rescue the moment. When we ask a deeper question, students need a few seconds to process what we're asking, go back into the text in their minds, and start forming a response. Even 10 or 15 seconds of quiet thinking time can change who is able to participate. because it gives more students the chance to come up with something to say instead of relying on the same few voices. A good strategy, and one we've talked about before, is to have students turn and talk before sharing out. This takes that pressure off having the right answer in front of the whole class and gives them a chance to try out their thinking. Another way to support students is to model what thinking sounds like. A think aloud is simply saying you're thinking out loud as you read or respond to a question, so students can hear what that process sounds like. Because it's not that students can't think about the text, it's that they don't always know how to go about it. They don't know what questions to ask themselves. As you're reading or discussing the text with the class, you might say something like, I'm noticing that earlier the character reacted one way, and now they're reacting differently. That makes me think something has changed. I'm not completely sure yet, but I'm starting to think this moment might be important. What do you think? What that does is it shows students how to begin. It shows them that it's okay to not have a perfect answer right away, and that thinking can sound like trying out an idea, going back to the text, and building from there. The goal here isn't to ask more questions, it's to be more strategic. Sometimes that means going back to the text and narrowing the focus for students. You might say, go back to that part. What exactly did they do that shows they were scared? Now you're helping the student ground their thinking in something specific without giving them the answer. Other times, it means giving them a comparison to work with. You might say, think about how they reacted earlier. What's different now? That helps students see change, which is often what we're asking them to notice. And sometimes it's about bringing in another voice. You might ask, does anyone want to add on to that? Or did anyone notice something similar or different? Now, the thinking isn't just on one student, it's shared across the group. The key here is that we're not giving them the answer. We're not lowering the thinking level because the silence is uncomfortable. We're helping students through the process and teaching them how to do the thinking. We're showing them how to notice something, how to connect it to something earlier in the text, and how to start forming an idea based on that. Then we hand it back to them. And now students have an entry point. They're not starting from nothing. They're building on a model of thinking. With enough consistency, students begin to understand that their first answer isn't the final answer, it's the starting point, and it needs to be developed. So, as you're thinking about your instruction this week, really focus on the questions you're asking and your approach to questioning. What are you asking students to do, and how are you guiding them through the process so they can understand how to think? You don't need to change everything you're doing, and you don't need to start from scratch. Instead, take one set of questions you're already using and look at them through this lens. Are your questions asking students to find information, or are they asking students to think about information? From there, revise a few questions so they push students just a little further. Shift them from what happened to why it matters. Shift them from identifying information to explaining thinking. And think about what you'll do after students respond, how you'll follow up, how you'll guide them back into the text, and how you'll help them build a stronger answer. As you make those shifts, pay attention to what happens in your classroom. Listen to how your students respond. You may notice that they take a little more time before answering, or that they begin going back into the text on their own. You might hear more explanation in their responses, or notice that their conversations with each other start to sound different. Those are the moments you're looking for because they show that students are doing more than just completing a task. They're actually thinking about what they're reading. Remember, it's not about adding more questions or creating more work. It's about creating opportunities for students to learn how to think critically. When we shift the questions, we shift what students do with the text. And when we shift what they do with the text, we strengthen comprehension. All right, everyone, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen, and I hope this episode gave you something to think about when it comes to the questions you're asking your students. If you found this episode helpful, I'd love for you to share it with a colleague or leave a quick review. That really helps more teachers find the podcast and join in on these conversations. And if you're looking for more support or just want a few more ideas, you can head over to middleschoolcafe.com. You'll find blog posts, classroom resources, and all of our podcast episodes there to support your teaching. Before we go, Whether you're in testing right now or it's still coming, remember to take care of yourself. This time of year can feel like a lot, and you're doing a lot for your students every day. As you head into your week, keep coming back to those questions you're asking. Small shifts can make a big difference in how your students are thinking. Thanks again for being here, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me today. As a reminder, a new episode drops every first and third Tuesday, so be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Be sure to visit middleschoolcafe.com to find links to everything mentioned in today's show. Until next time.